Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Hey, Savigne, I'm so glad you made it. I was going to send you a direct message and let you know that I switched up the dates. So I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for being here, everyone. If you are here for the first time, welcome to the HSP Club. I created this club so highly sensitive people could come together, connect, and build community. If you're just learning about this trait, this is another great group to learn more about your trait and just relate to people who are going through this world, viewing the world differently, understanding the world differently. Right? So I welcome everyone here, and we're celebrating 1 year anniversary in Clubhouse. So it was a year ago this time that Whitney and I were doing rooms every Thursday called Highly Sensitive People Unite. And of course, this is back in the old days when Clubhouse really didn't have a lot of ways to search rooms or room titles. You could really only search people or clubs. And it wasn't until March of 2021 that they allowed people to make clubs on their own. And I had been waiting and waiting and waiting for that moment so I could create this club so HSPs could find us. And last week we had a 1 year anniversary meeting as well. And I thought I would do it in a couple sessions just in case people missed the first one. So a lot of people who came to that meeting last week mentioned that they found the club and learned more about this trait through just searching HSP or highly sensitive person in the search bar. So I'm just really glad that my hunch to start the club and title it in that form would allow HSPs to find us. So today we're just celebrating. I don't really have any particular question to ask. If you're here and you've been here for a while, I just appreciate you showing up. And this Thursday at 11 a.m. Central has been the time that we've been meeting consistently. But I will be doing additional rooms at different times, primarily on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But sometimes there might be a weekend room, but I will continue to schedule rooms and hopefully shuffle all those days and times around so that it can reach more HSPs, because I know we're all over the globe. We're all in different time zones, and I'm trying to make that easier. But also the other thing I wanted to mention is replays are now available. So if you do miss the live room, you can check out the replays. Those will be at the bottom of the HSP Club. I'm also putting that replay on YouTube. It's just the audio. It's not any visuals. So you just see or you just will hear it like you would hear a podcast. But that is just new and in the works. So as those conversations are had, I will go ahead and put them over there as well. So I see some familiar faces in the crowd here. Thanks for being here, Danielle, Iman, Maria, Ruth. You're all welcome to join up here on stage and share. Really, I could go on about a whole different array of topics, but I'd like to hear from you and anything that you would like to share, or if you have questions or discussion points, all of that is welcome. So I'll go ahead and mute myself, and I'll just say hi to Savigne. And Savigne, thanks for being here again. Good to see you. And I'll let you speak if you would like to share anything, and then we can also just have anyone else that would like to raise their hand and come up onto the stage. You're welcome to do so.
Hi, Julie, and hi, everyone. I'm so glad I can be here. It's just right on time. Last previous session that we were celebrating 1 year anniversary, I was joining late, so I guess I was missing a lot of statements and speeches from others, and I just feel grateful to have found this group since last year. It has been such a supporting energy, and yeah, yeah, and feel very connected, and I think that's the most powerful thing one can ever feel. Yeah, living, especially in the time of the pandemic. So yeah, um, yeah, and this is Sawadee, and I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you. I so appreciate that. And I love hearing that this has been helpful for people, especially during this time that we've been going through 2 years of feeling pretty socially disconnected. And I'm not sure at the beginning of this, I definitely was excited to be home and I enjoyed being home. But ultimately, we are designed to be social people and we're meant to connect. And I mean, if you look at like the blue zones in those communities or those different cultures, community is a huge part of health and wellness. And so, and also, I want to refer to Elaine Aaron. She talks about the 5 needs, and one of those 5 needs is being around HSPs in community. So that's why I started this group. I really wanted to create the space not only for others but myself to just have that avenue to connect with other HSPs. And I did so consistently for the last year. And through that process, I have been able to connect with other HSPs that I met here outside of the app and have just built really strong relationships that have ebbed and flowed into so many different directions. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as well. But I see Denise or Denise, did I pronounce that correctly? If you would like to share anything, I'll give you a chance here and mute myself. This is Julie and I'm complete.
Thank you so much, Julie. Yeah, my name is Denise. Denise, and sometimes my friends call me D-Nice. That's funny that, yeah. So yeah, this is my first time. I am a highly sensitive person, and thank you for having me. I'm a mind body therapist, and I support highly sensitive creatives to heal from trauma and really thrive. And as a highly sensitive person, you know, this is like my first time jumping into this room, first time discovering this room, first time pretty like new to Clubhouse, and this is my first time speaking. So
Yay!
thank you guys for receiving me. Yeah. So I'm so glad I found this room. I want to keep tuning in. I think for me, I spent so much of my life not knowing what it is to be HSP, not even knowing that that was a thing. And when I went through my own healing journey, and discovered that, it was like a huge game changer of like, oh, I just have different needs, and we live in a culture that I find doesn't know about it, and we're like, I think 15 to 25% or something of the population, and it's just different. I'm just different, and I have that high sensitivity, and it's actually a real gift, and then I have different needs to like really support my gifts. And so, anyways, so it's really good to connect with other highly sensitive. I just wanted to say hi and presence myself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I mean, I would love to hear more about how you work with highly sensitive people around trauma. This is definitely a topic that is meaningful to HSPs, obviously. And I just want to go back to the science that Elaine Aaron talks about. It's interesting how um, my personal journey was not supported as a highly sensitive child. I did not have the emotional support at all. And I did deal with some childhood trauma, which I never really considered trauma until I started working on Peter Levine's course, which is also another great way to look at trauma and heal your trauma. But it's just interesting that there are HSPs out there that had the right circumstance, that had care providers who were validating their feelings, who were encouraging their interests and different things that made them uniquely highly sensitive. And those people are out in the world as adults, thriving without even maybe knowing they're a highly sensitive person. And so I think those of us that fall into that category of seeing this as a hindrance or a struggle or something that isn't always pleasant, being a highly sensitive person, have often just not been supported. And then those adult issues that show up as low self esteem or chronic health issues or chronic pain issues. And so I just want to acknowledge that, the assumption sometimes is that highly sensitive people are all traumatized, but that's not the case. But because we experience trauma differently, it isn't necessarily the same trauma that other people may be responding to that we respond to. So there's just so much to learn around that topic of trauma. And if you find an HSP knowledgeable therapist, I think that is always the safe bet to go down that path of understanding your trauma and working through your trauma, and also making sure that you're working with someone that understands that trauma is held in the body, that it's not a mental therapist cognitive process, that it's a somatic experiencing process. And we really need to work with practitioners that will understand the research behind emotions that are trapped in the body and how to process those stuck emotions so that we can better go through our day and not be in these little loops that really are a disservice for ourselves. So I'm always happy to hear what people do, especially people who serve HSPs. That's another thing I love about this group is there's so many different HSPs that are doing different work with HSPs. We all have our own particular interests in that area, and I'm all about elevating HSP voices and letting other HSPs know that there are other HSP people out there that are supporting HSPs, because I think it's really difficult to go to the doctor or go to a therapist that doesn't know about this trait. You feel like you're constantly educating them, and we're just not getting the right treatment plans. So, anyway, that's my long winded response, but I just love what you shared. And yeah, I'm happy to hear more about what you do with HSPs.
100%. I think, thank you for asking. And I think what you mentioned about that it's not a mental process, but that it is, the trauma is stuck in the body. And that's true for everyone, right? Whether we're HSP or not, that's the nature of trauma, that it is lodged in the body. So 100%. And I think it's really, really important for anyone who has trauma to really seek out healers who, or therapists who has that somatic piece, trauma informed piece, because I find in my own healing journey and from working with other highly sensitive creatives and healers and empaths that trauma is definitely lodged in the body. And for some people who have a lot of trauma, we want to disassociate and not go into the body because it's dangerous territory. So it's really important, first of all, um, to find someone one feels safe with, and then to build that relationship and rapport and safety and trust, and to go with someone who really understands that it's so key to titrate the trauma, which means we don't always want to go down to the body really quickly because there's a lot there, right? But to gently, gently, slowly go down, if that makes sense. And also, in terms of like how I work, highly sensitives and trauma, there's of course not everyone who has HSP has trauma and vice versa. I do find that, yeah, you did mention that HSPs, they react to trauma in a different way. And I find that to be the case simply because highly sensitives feel a lot. High HSP people, like we feel other people's energies, and there's a sensitivity where, if someone kind of, let's say, like pokes at us, right? And where someone else who is not highly sensitive may not feel it as much, the highly sensitive person might feel it a little, deeply. So I think in that sense, um we process trauma differently, and just knowing those things is like really truly helpful. And I don't know if I'm answering your question.
You are, you're doing a great job. It's
Okay,
just
good.
great to hear someone else talk about trauma through this lens, because I think that's, the difficulty is trying to find practitioners and people who understand both trauma and also the trait of high sensitivity and how we have a different connection to that process through our sensory input,
Yeah,
our nervous
I'm glad.
system, all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
and
you. Thank
yeah,
you for letting me
and
share. Okay, I'll pass.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Dennis, for sharing and for mentioning trauma. And I'll say, you know, I think if we recognize ourselves as SSP or gifted, then trauma is something that sort of usually comes along the way. But then I'll say that since we are sensitive and we feel sometimes a lot more intense than the others, body and mind, um, one of the things I think is the good news is that it's our gift because we can feel, and in terms of trauma, if we can feel it, we can heal it. So I think that's a gift for all of us. And this is Tawani, and I'm complete.
I love that. And I think that's another thing that I really, have learned a lot is that you have to feel your feelings. And as a little girl, I wasn't given permission to do that. I was either taunted or why are you crying or why aren't you over that, and so when you start to go into that mode of self-rejection, it's really easy to disassociate from your body, numb out, turn to alcohol, addictions, food, whatever that is. And so that is definitely, something that HSPs may need to heal. And it's definitely been a part of my healing journey. And it just depends on, knowing that you have this trait will help you, I think, navigate through that healing journey from a different lens. And I think that's really important. So, yeah, there's just a lot that we can do. I think as highly sensitive people, one of the things that I really care about is advocating for this trait. And my mission and my vision for the world is to go into different systems like the school system, the hospital, the medical, and really educate these care providers, whether they're teachers, admins, principals, all of these different people that are interacting with people should really have the knowledge and education around this trait. We make up 1 in 4 people. And so you're definitely going to have highly sensitive people in all of these circumstances. And we're just not being seen and heard. And our needs are different. And I really want to advocate for that. So that is really my big mission for 2022, trying to get back into my local community in person. I've already been in conversations with some doctor friends of mine and also the school system in trying to have conversations with parents initially and seeing what I can create from that vantage point. So I'm excited, and I also would love to hear if there are other HSPs in the room that are interested in building something within their local community, and hoping that I can kind of create a template that would be duplicatable and something that you could take to your local level and help others understand this trait better. So I'm super excited about that. And I will pass the mic off to Kasara. Good to see you, Kasara.
Hi, Julie and friends. Gosh, I feel like I haven't popped into this room in a while. So I'm grateful to be here, and I'm so grateful for everyone's share, especially around the topic of trauma or past trauma. And again, um, I'm super into this whole polyvagal theory, and I don't know if anyone has or has any familiarity with that. Dr. Stephen Porges is the one who has like tons of research on that. And one of the things that I did learn, and I think Denise had mentioned, is that trauma is physiological and not psychological, and it is stored in the body. And that was so revolutionary for me, especially with regards to how the body responds to trauma, or I'm sorry, like maybe fear or um, uh, danger, right? And we don't necessarily get to pick. We don't pick how we respond to it, especially as children. The body picks, and it just knows how to survive. And I, I love when I learned that the there's like fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. When I learned that freeze and fawn, or freeze and appease, were also trauma responses, or responses to, the body was just using to protect and to survive. It kind of was a game changer for me, because I've always, after the fact, like, why did I just stay there? Like, why did I not do anything about it? Or what's worse is, like, if another person's like, well, why did you just stay there? Why did you not do anything about it? And and I just have to, like, give so much gratitude to my body for knowing exactly the right thing to do, because not only did it allow the person who is me to survive, but now that I have more of like a command on, like, just the knowledge of it, being able to rework a lot of, like, maybe self criticism that I had for myself, in the past, has just allowed me to move to a place of gratitude. And with regards to the somatic responses, I just started um, therapy with this one, and I really, really enjoyed her. I didn't recognize that you can do all these things, because I'm just kind of fairly new to all of it. But she's like, well, we can do somatic therapy, and, like, even the simplest thing. Okay, when you're feeling, like, what are you feeling right now? What is your body feeling? And the ability to even say, oh, my body's not feeling anything. I don't feel anything. And I didn't realize that that's how I move a lot, is like that self-abandonment. I think someone had mentioned, like, where I just don't feel anything. I'm literally not in my body. And I didn't know that was necessary. I know that's probably good to have, but sometimes I feel like it's something that I use in a creative realm too. So I'm, like, trying to figure that out. But finally, she was helping me kind of to return to my body by saying, okay, well, what does panic feel like? I'm like, oh, it feels like this thing that's stuck in my throat. Like, I feel like I'm being suffocated. It's stuck in my throat and I can't breathe. But then once I was able to kind of return, I can feel that couch, the warmth of that, the softness of that couch behind my body. Just even those simple sensations, and recognizing, okay, it's safe, and there's a soft couch, and there's peace here. And even that ability alone was so huge, because now I don't necessarily respond to, like, the same triggers the same way. And I'm really looking forward to kind of grow in that journey. And so thanks, Julie. And I'm so grateful for this room and this space. And I love what you're doing in the community. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. And I love your sharing, because it is really interesting to start to do this work around trauma and just the different tools and practices that are available to us. I know I found my HSP knowledgeable therapist through Elaine Aron's website. And if you're unfamiliar with Elaine Aron, just let me know on the back channel and I can send you a link that lists the therapists by state. And what I started to notice is a lot of the therapists were offering this new technique called brain spotting. And I know I see Maria on stage here. She's been introduced to that before. And it's kind of similar to EMDR, but it's different. And I guess her clients prefer it over EMDR, which I have not personally experienced EMDR, but I know that is another form of accessing that stuck trauma in the body. So it's just fascinating work. And I think you mentioned also, what did you mention? I can't remember the last name of the person that you brought up, but that is someone that I have heard of as well. What was the name?
Stephen Porges, is that who you're
Yes,
talking about?
yes.
Yes.
And polyvagal, when I came across that for the first time, I was like, well, this is it. This is what you need to heal as a highly sensitive person, because it really is about accessing the nervous system and getting that going again, and just being again connected to that root system is so important. So it's exciting work, and I think as people who can do that deep dive, we're able to go there quicker than maybe other people who are, you know, obviously going through different traumas, but don't have that ability to tap into that inner knowledge as quickly as maybe a highly sensitive person. So it's really cool. And I'm just really happy that you shared your experience, and that it's good to see people here that have been around since the beginning of the club in the room. And that's super exciting. And I'll just continue to share community here. I think it's such a great platform to be able to talk and sit in my pajamas and my robe and not have to think about a screen and people invading my home space. So thanks again. And I would love to pass off the mic to Danielle. Good to see you, Danielle.
Sorry, I can't speak right now. Can you come back to me?
No problem. Sorry, I couldn't get my mic unmuted. I'll go ahead and pass it to Maria. Good to see you, Maria.
Hi everyone, my name's Maria. I'm a highly sensitive person. Julie, you pretty much said everything I was going to say about brain spotting, so
Sorry.
which is awesome. That's okay. And I just wanted to kind of give the club and you some props because I remember that one time I joined on a Thursday and I was like having such a hard week. I don't know if you remember that specific week, but the pandemic and the craziness of being a highly sensitive mom and trying to have my own creative practice, I just felt like so overwhelming. I was in a really kind of like dark space and I couldn't get myself out of it. And I was like, I guess I'll just show up to the room today and see what happens. And that was the day that you mentioned you should go to Dr. Elaine Aron's website and look for a therapist there, because I had mentioned that I was wanting to go back into therapy, but like I just with the pandemic and I just wasn't sure. And um anyway, so that after I got off the call that morning, I went on the website. I was like, okay, I gotta just do this. I just gotta do it, man. And I found the therapist I'm now seeing, that I've been seeing her for like 6 months or something like that now. And she's the one that introduced me to brain spotting, and it has been life changing. I didn't know how amazing my body is. Like I never learned how to use my body as the tool that it is and as the great, amazing thing that it can do. So yeah, brain spotting is a form of therapy that I had never tried before, and I guess it is pretty new, and it is just really good to. Yeah, my son's trying to talk to you guys too. It's just been really good to learn how, here you go, baby, how to use my body in that way where I can just trust myself again. I think as kids, we trust ourselves, but when we're young, especially if you experience some sort of trauma and whatever that means, in your world, it teaches us to not trust our own bodies. And as highly sensitive people, I think that's one of our greatest tools. And it's been really life changing in the way that I show up as a parent, in the way that I show up as a person, as a human being in this world. And I just, had it not been for this room, and you start going back and trickling down all the things that happened, and how now I have this therapist who, she's also highly sensitive, and so she totally understands. And it just, things just kind of came together in that way. So yay for the 1 year celebration again, and just being here in community and showing up as ourselves and not having to think so much about who we're supposed to be, and just being. I mean, I tell my family, like, I'm a human being. I'm gonna have a lot of emotions. Like, it's just who I am. So I just want to say thank you again, and I'm so excited to be here, build community with all of you guys. I love meeting new people and just supporting one another and cheering you on whatever it is that you're doing. So I am complete.
Yay. Thank you, Maria. I so appreciate you sharing your experience. And I'm so glad that message came through as a time where you needed to hear it and you took action. And you actually inspired me to go back to the list and look at my options, because there is only one in Iowa. There is one person listed. And that doesn't mean there's not other therapists that have the knowledge of HSP, but Elaine Aron has provided a certain quiz or something so that you could be represented on her website. So For me, that just took out a lot of labor on my end to have to educate a therapist, because I have tried therapy and have gotten nowhere through talk therapy. And the last therapist I had was at the beginning of 2020, and I gave her many chances, even presented information about my trait, and she just really didn't acknowledge it. So it was a really frustrating process. And so the one HSP knowledgeable therapist that was in Iowa happened to take my insurance, and now I'm able to see her on a weekly basis, which is also going to enhance my awareness and knowledge of this trait, and help others do the same. So that's super exciting. And so I just want to say the ripple effect of you taking action made me take action and revisit something that I had really given up on, because I was super frustrated to not find someone that I had to educate. So yay, this is what this community is all about. And I'm just really happy that this is helping even just one person. Really makes me satisfied to just, continue to show up and hold space and be here. A lot of people charge money for this stuff, and I really believe that through this community, I will find opportunities that will turn into different money producing jobs. But to just have that solid support and uh, place to go, even during these like uncertain times of not being able to have consistent in-person communities, it's just super helpful. So I'm just excited everyone is here today. And again, I will give Danielle the opportunity to speak, and then we'll move over to Junior. So let us know, Danielle, is this a good time to speak?
Yeah, I'm good. Hi everyone. I'm Danielle. I haven't been in these rooms as often as I would like over the last few months. Um, I actually messaged Julie earlier, back channel, and so that I didn't actually realise there was a room today. So it was kind of ironic to me that it popped up when it did. I just, I think I've always said when I've come in here how grateful I am for the space. I am feeling very emotionally exhausted right now, and obviously I don't want to unpack all of that and pour it all out because I don't want it to pour into other people. But I guess I'm feeling quite isolated because I don't think there is really anyone around me that I can say the things I need to say to and them actually understand why I view things in the way that I do. So I guess that makes me feel quite isolated and quite lonely. And I'm not here to be all like woe is me, but it just is really beneficial and helpful to me to sit in a room with other people who just get it, and I don't need to explain it. And what Julie was just saying before about finding a therapist who really understands the HSP trait. I have never had that, never found that. I'm actually blind. Some of you already know that, but for some reason I find Elaine Aron's website quite difficult to navigate with my screen reader. So in terms of the therapist list, I'm not sure if there is anything international on there or whether it's just limited to the US. But also I'm a single parent and I have a chronic illness. I'm living on state income, and being able to pay a lot, money for therapy is just not something that I'm able to do right now. So I guess I'm just feeling really, really stuck and full up and confused. And I just wanted to come and say that and not negate the energy in the room in any way, but to just be able to say that and have people hear that and take it for what it is and what it means. So I really want to thank you. I'm complete.
Thank you, Danielle. And I just want to say I acknowledge your frustration and the feelings that you're experiencing. And I just want to validate all of that, because I have been in your shoes in terms of feeling frustrated. Like every direction you want to go to give yourself support feels out of reach, or you don't have the resources, or you're not finding the resources. I think that is where a lot of HSPs feel stuck and are struggling to take care of themselves. And again, I'm going to send you a message, and I'm pretty sure there is some international references on Elaine Aron's site. I will agree with you. Her site is very clunky for someone that is overstimulated by a lot of information. Her website is not exactly user friendly in that regard. So whatever I can do to support you, I'm happy to connect. And I did see your message, but I saw it right before the room. So I will be reaching out to you with some ideas and insights and research or resources. So hang in there. And I just appreciate you being here and being vulnerable and sharing yourself. And just know we're here on a weekly basis, and you're always welcome to feel your feelings and be in this space. It's a safe space to share this kind of information. But I really appreciate you wanting to be mindful of the energy and not wanting to just dump a lot of information that will negate the conversation. But I just want you to know that we're here for you.
Thank you.
So, one of the things that I wanted to bring up, and something that I've been thinking about a lot in terms of highly sensitive people, is um, a lot of the feelings I have about this trait and the work that I want to do around this trait is letting people know that this trait exists, and that HSPs need to see a world that better supports us. But on the other hand, I see HSPs as the type of people that will be able to go out and change these systems. So, on one flip of the coin, I want the cultural, social understanding of what it is like to be in our shoes and to experience the world that way. But I also believe that through our empathy and our sensitivity and our creativity, that we're going to be able to be the pioneers who lead those initiatives to create environments, systems, and structures that are more sensitive in nature. And I think as we have gone through the last 2 years of this pandemic, we've watched different systems crumble, and we've had different curtains reveal problems within our systems, our culture, our society, especially in the US. And I think this is our time to be those pioneers, to team up with other HSPs that you connect with, that you resonate with, and start to ask questions in your local area of how you can get into these systems, and perhaps give a educational talk or show up at a PTA and educate parents. I just think when I think of all the trauma that people are going through because of 2 years of lockdown, or just, in fear of this virus, that is impacting everyone. Everyone's experiencing trauma. But if you're a highly sensitive person, you may have already been going through a lot pre-pandemic, and now everything is just even more intense. And so I think that we're going to need a lot of helpers in schools and hospitals, doctor's office, therapist's office, to really educate people around this trait, and get other people to see that there's a need. I keep calling it sensitivity training, where we need to adapt to an approach that accommodates highly sensitive people, but knowing that something works for a highly sensitive person means it's good for everyone. So I think it was Elaine Aron that says what's good for an HSP is good for everyone. So I want to start talking about those ideas and how we can get those ideas out there. If you're interested in any of that activism or advocating, or you have connections with a hospital or a school or teachers, please sign up for my newsletter. I put a link here on the top. I'm going to be sending out a survey soon to see where people are interested in maybe infiltrating their local community, and then also holding different support groups where we can come together and support one another as we try to go into these different avenues, and create awareness and advocate for this trait and see what we can do to help people. One thing that I did recently, I am a substitute teacher. I subbed before the pandemic, and I did not sub at all for the last year and a half. But recently, to keep my good grace with the school district that I'm in, I had to do a trauma training and a suicide training, and I was just dumbfounded at the information that was provided, and how much trauma is in the schools, and how much suicide has actually gotten worse year after year, not improved. And so I think it's really important that we go in and connect with these different local communities, different systems, and see where we can be of help. And part of those, part of helping others takes away from the problems we are constantly consumed with within our own personal world. And so, again, I feel like that's a win-win, advocating for our trait, but also lending your help to others so that, you know, there are things that can be prevented. And especially if you're working with children and you can access kids from a younger age, that is, I think, a great starting point to get them when they're young versus having to do a lot of repair work as an adult. So those are just my thoughts and ideas around that. I'd love to hear if anyone else has any similar passions or desires to do that in their community. I know Maria and I have talked a lot outside of Clubhouse, and she has done some in-person support groups that have been pretty monumental for her. And again, I just think that we can all do our own part in our local community, and it's just taking those first steps and then coming together as an HSP community to support one another through that process. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I absolutely love all that. Obviously, you know that, Julie, but I think there's kind of two parts to this, right? We need to go through our own journey and understand ourselves and this trait and what it has done in our lives and what it can do and kind of go within. But also that journey is incomplete if you stay within and don't go out. So I think it's a combination of both, and I think this is the perfect platform to be able to share and discuss ideas and kind of check in with each other, things that we've tried, things that we want to do. Oh, my son's excited too. So yeah, I think this is great, and I can't wait to see what comes from it.
Thank you, Maria. And I'm excited to see where, our outside work of Clubhouse takes us, because it seems to be that when I speak ideas out loud, information, resources, opportunities, or even people show up in really interesting synchronistic ways that kind of take me to the next step of the journey. So that's been really interesting to witness, because usually I'm stuck in my head and I really only have myself to ponder my ideas. So it's really nice to be able to connect with a fellow HSP to just share those ideas and make those ideas come alive. I think this is the time to act instead of, being stuck in our head. But I agree with you that we're all on a different journey as HSPs, and wherever you're at is the right place for you. But I'm definitely someone who is very focused on creating a lifestyle that supports our biology and also doing the healing work, which I've been doing for 2 decades. I just didn't know I was an HSP. So it's just taking that healing path from a new lens, which is super exciting, and knowing there's nothing wrong with me. I do not have a disorder, but there are some things that I need to kind of reframe from my past experience through the lens of being an HSP that would serve me better, and improve my life experience. So thank you for sharing, Maria. And I see Beatrice has come to stage. Thank you so much for being here, Beatrice. It's so great to see you.
Hello. Hi, guys, or ladies, and there's a gentleman. Um, I said I was going to crash your party, Julie.
Crash it, girl.
um, so Julie had another room the other day, which was at 1 a.m. my time, so I wasn't able to attend it, about social media and the impact on us as highly sensitive people. And I said I was going to bring up this topic in your room as your anniversary. But I think first I wanted to acknowledge, Julie, that we met probably right at the beginning when you started these rooms. And I remember just the depth, which I can see is still a big part of the group now and the rooms you're organizing. And I just love that you've been so consistent with them, and you're showing up all the time, and people are receiving a lot of support and just a sense of belonging in these rooms, which I know has felt really nice for me, even though I just haven't been on Clubhouse for a long time. So I really wanted to, to affirm that and acknowledge you for that, for creating these spaces for HSPs. And I've always really enjoyed just the talk element of Clubhouse, and being able to hear each other's voices and how we immerse each other in sort of each other's energy, and how mindful we are of each other and how much space we take, and what we choose to share with each other while still being authentic. And that just always feels like a really nice balance. Yeah, and the social media topic was very present for me, because I think as highly sensitive people, we are obviously very sensitive, right? And I think there is something about Facebook, or at least what I've noticed in my own experience with Facebook, and potentially with Instagram, but I'm more present on Facebook, that there is this, there's almost this addiction, and obviously there's been a lot of like documentaries done on this topic and so on. But there's this addictive, it's compelling, sometimes to just like refresh or just spend time there or scroll. And that's been really present for me lately, and especially like asking myself, what is it when I'm consuming this content on Facebook, especially that you can't really control a lot of the content that comes in your face, basically. But what is it that when I'm doing this behavior, what behavior am I, avoiding or not being present with? And that's really, made me reflect on, pain or potentially trauma or things that we might be covering through this behavior. And I think this has been particularly present. Particularly present because of the sense of isolation, and I think we're all a bit fed up with it. And I think especially as highly sensitive people, we just experience that in much deeper way, because we are so connected with people's emotions. And I think also at the collective level, we probably pick up some of the stuff that's going on, for society in general, and not just in our household. So yeah, I wasn't sure what I was going to say, but I'll pause here. This is Beatrice, and I'm complete.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought this up and that you could jump in here. And this is a topic I think we'll definitely be able to have more rooms on. I look at social media so differently than I did when it first came out. And our conversation, if you missed it on Tuesday, it is in the replays. And I just really, we really hit the tip of the iceberg. And I think for me personally, when I think about social media, Allison Roselle, who was a part of that conversation, she kind of hit the nail on the head for me. It's just a lot of noise. It's visual noise, it's mental chatter, it's a lot of, you know, for me personally, the only reason I went to Instagram and decided to get in there and post consistently and build a brand, a visual brand, a niche that was solely focused on highly sensitive people was because of the pandemic. And prior to the pandemic, I was a substitute teacher. I was doing a lot of work around understanding this trait. I was, finding resources. And I felt back in 2018 when I first learned about this, the internet was not saturated with information. I feel like the internet has so much more information now in 2022 than it did, 3, 4 years ago. And so I really had a hard time getting information and learning about the trait. And basically, I had already started to build relationships with different administrators and teachers and principals. And there was one school in particular that I initiated a conversation to have a meeting with parents. And this was March of 2020, and then everything shut down. We literally went into spring break and we never went back. And so that initiative in me kind of fizzled because I couldn't really do anything in person. And I was really new at speaking about the trait. And then what happened was I went through the process of posting consistently on Instagram, finding other people on Instagram that were talking about HSPs specifically, and then I thought, well, if I can, start to do different conversations. What happened was Clubhouse showed up just at the right time. I was also learning about my human design, which was to use my voice. So, using my voice was a source of power for me versus written word. And I also have dyslexia. So, even writing, even though I have a lot to say, it just is something difficult for me to be concise, to be, just rehearsed in my written word. And I didn't like the way you could speak at people, but you weren't in dialogue, you weren't in conversation. And that's why Clubhouse has been such a great platform for highly sensitive people, I think, is that it's a way to actually have the depth in conversation that we desire, and to be able to be present and authentic and ourselves without having to stare at a screen in conversation, which can be very overstimulating for me. But my whole path of just going through this internet world, thinking that I needed to create visibility through social media, and then over that year of building up my social media, I realized that this environment just isn't serving me. And I am a people person. Even though I consider myself an ambivert, I always enjoyed people. I feel connected to people when I'm in conversation with them. Um, and so for me, it feels very easy to access that part of myself through my local community. And so now that we're hopefully moving through a different new way of being in the world, I can go back to the model I originally pursued, which was in person. And I just saw that with social media, that the way that it's gotten and the way they continue to change it just seems very fruitless to continue to build content on a platform, and crank it out and change with the algorithms, and then you only see a certain number of people. Even if you're following 800 people, you have a very limited scope of who you're actually seeing. And to me, it just feels very depersonalized. And I do get stuck in that comparison, like I'm not going fast enough, I'm not posting enough, I'm not doing reels, I'm not. And to me, every single time I try to do an Instagram post, I felt like the post was something that I had to edit down. I didn't have enough characters in the body. I had to put a photo that made sense for my grid. And I know not everyone has to do that. That was just me listening to a lot of people telling me how I should be doing things. And through that course of the last year, I really started to ask myself, well, what do I want to do? How do I want to show up? And ultimately, I decided that, cranking out content for social media and padding the pockets of billionaires really wasn't for me. And so I don't want to stop making content, but I want to pull that to my website. And so now this is my year to really crank up the notch on my website and create content there, and then maybe use social media as a pointer to my website. But I don't get enjoyment out of creating content for Instagram and Facebook. Facebook to me is completely overstimulating. There is so many, I don't know, tiers to that visual platform that I find it very clunky to look at. And again, I have several friends on that platform and I never see anyone. I just wish there was a better way to stay connected, and see the people that you want to interact with. And, I know that there's ways to manipulate it, but to me, that just seems like a second job. So that's kind of my take on social media. I know Maria might have some words on it, but yeah, how are you feeling about social media, Beatrice?
Yeah, I was. I can't take notes at the same time because I'm like flashing my mic. But I really resonate. I feel like Facebook in a way started in a positive, because Facebook is my platform in a way, but started in a positive way that enabled connections that just weren't otherwise possible. And for me, I moved to the UK from Romania. I moved 8 or 9 years ago. So having a platform like Facebook was just so useful. And then I almost feel like, like you have a salesperson coming to your door and they're like, oh, here's a free, free knife and it's amazing and blah, blah, blah. It's yours, take it. And you're like, oh, really? It's mine? Oh, thank you. And then they're like, oh, yeah, but let me sell you this and let me do that. And it almost feels like Facebook started in that really nice, friendly way. But then you look at your relationship, a few years later, and you're like, hold on a minute, I never signed up for this. This is not the kind of relationship I want to have. But then by that point, you're too far in the relationship and you feel like you've invested a lot, right? Because you've exchanged content and maybe you've built your marketing strategy around that platform and all of that. And I almost feel like cheated in a way, But obviously I realized that Facebook has an algorithm, but I can always choose. It's like Facebook is in a way screen that you can project a lot of things on. Facebook has taken away my freedom, or Facebook has done this or that to me, and it's really made me reflect um, on the things I might be projecting on Facebook and blaming Facebook that it's actually, actually inside me. And the final thing I'll say is that I really resonated with what you said about platforms becoming depersonalized, and I really feel that. And I feel that really hits the nail on the head for me, because in the last few months, and I'm now seeing the connection between my gradual dislike of Facebook and my gradual longing for coming back to Clubhouse. But unfortunately, I just don't find that many spaces anymore on Clubhouse, other than this room and perhaps a couple others, where there is that feeling of, I think maybe it's the topics that are just less interesting in general on here. But I've really missed being able to connect with people in this way, where there's no other stimulation other than just hearing a person's voice. And Beatrice, and I'm done.
And that's exactly it, Beatrice. It's like, I feel as highly sensitive people, to be on a screen. I mean, I was really lucky to not have to be a part of that Zoom world. And I don't want to be a part of that Zoom world. Even when I talk on Clubhouse, I'm usually staring out the window. I don't look at my screen. I hold my phone to my face so that I can be heard. But I'm typically looking out a window, and it's easier for me to process my thoughts and to speak just from my intuition when I do that, versus having to have my eyeballs on something that is taking away my thought process or overstimulating me because I'm looking at faces looking at me, which just feels very unnatural. And speaking of natural, the other thing being someone who is a strong advocate for rest and slowing down and intentional living and building a lifestyle around our nervous system. You know, I want more people off of the screen and getting back into nature, getting outside, aligning yourself with the natural rhythms of our seasons and nature cycles. And that means less screen time. And so I don't really want to build a business through social media because that requires me to spend more time on a screen. And also, before social media existed, we all had businesses, or not we personally, but there were businesses that existed without social media. And I know this well because my parents were both self-employed. My dad always had been able to connect with people, be that person that is known for what he does and build relationships. And he never had an email list, he never had social media accounts. Probably had a Rolodex, and a cell phone in a bag, and he, made his business work. And so I think it's this illusion that we tell ourselves that we need to build on social media to be seen and heard. And that illusion has just crumbled for me. And through this, awakening and having conversations with other HSPs, I learned that other HSPs were also having similar feelings about social media, and that it felt like a very inauthentic place. And especially when we may be able to see and know people outside of social media, and then we may see what they post. And then there's that response to that inconsistency because, of course, Facebook, Instagram, it's just a highlight reel. It's not all of who we are. And so I think that's also, as people who notice the subtle, and we pick up a lot of data points and we're able to make observations, it's confusing to see, some people live a certain way through social media, and then we know behind the scenes how their life is or what they're going through, and it's just confusing. So I have a lot to say about social media, but I'm really excited to be moving myself away from it. And my solution is really to just focus on my website and creating content, and going about doing more in person, um, just ways to connect and build out opportunities that way. So there's lots of different ways to go about marketing your work without social media. And so that's kind of where I'm focused on right now.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you, Beatrice. When you mentioned freedom, when you mentioned illusion, and I just feel, I totally can relate. I think I think 10 years back, I was on Facebook so much, and I didn't know that every Friday I just make an attempt to hang out with some group of friends who just, whoever friends that are available to go out and have like Friday night dinner. I just need to take a picture and post on Facebook. And as an SSP, I think we all know we need a downtime. We need our me time, and I just skip that, non-consciously skip that, and then go ahead and go ahead and hang out and just to get one picture and post on Facebook. And it was so tiring. And as an SSP, we get tired, we need to sleep, we need to stay quiet, we have those moments that we need to regain our energy. And that was at one point very tiring time of my life, until I realized, oh, HSP, I need my downtime. So I think for 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 all of us who realize that, yeah, Facebook Instagram can really be yeah, it can be entertaining, and it can be a source that drain our energy as an SSP. Yeah, just want to share that. It is Sawani, and I'm complete.
Thank you, Savane. I love hearing just how people are reacting to social media. And I hear a lot of it seemed like social media was this way in the beginning, and it's obviously morphed and evolved. And I see it as a very toxic place to be for a highly sensitive person. And just if you're in the US, just the political climate, the I mean, just there's so much on Facebook that is confrontational, that is people taking the time out of their day to criticize others, there's just a lot of that, like, anger and hostility, and you don't have to read it in your feed necessarily. I feel like there's an energy there that is just not hospitable to highly sensitive people. And so I'm, someone who I was around before Facebook existed. I remember when it came around and I jumped in, and it was really a place where I was connecting with people that I knew from my childhood or high school or college days. And that was really fun and exciting. But now I just feel like it's totally changed. And every time I'm on there, someone is trying to sell something or a product is being pushed on me. So again, just trying to move away from that noise and get back into my natural rhythms. And I know we've all leaned on social media a lot over the couple years during the pandemic. There's not been that social outlet, so it's served, a purpose over the last couple years. But I hope that we can start to move into a more in-person community direction and just see our relationship with social media and identify if it's something that is harmful or helpful, and do what's best for you to take care of yourself, especially as a highly sensitive person. So, um, yeah, I could go on and on about social media. We definitely need to have another room talking about this and seeing if there's other HSPs that need support with just moving away from it, if that's helpful for them. And Marwa, I saw you jumped up here on stage. Would you like to share anything? You're welcome to share. I'll go ahead and mute myself.
Thanks so much, Julie. I think I'm very happy to listen your take about social media, since I'm also HSP. And to be honest, I hate it. I completely hate it. And I deleted Facebook since 6 years ago, and I was very happy and content. Being in academia, I don't know if you hear about Twitter and science and Twitter. I did that like now 3 years, but to be honest, the last 6 months I still feel my mental health just, I can't, and my energy is drained, and I'm already HSP. But it was tricky, to be honest. I have to be honest with you, because I'm also doing a podcast. I'm in academia, so it was tricky for me how I can post my new updates. And to be honest, what I started to do is just log into my page and just post what I did and just go out. And what did it make it? Just people start hate me. Follow academicians. They found that I'm not liking what they do. Actually, I started to feel afraid even to look for update. I don't know why, but just it's too much for me. And I don't know, to be honest. I don't know if I should delete it completely, Twitter, because I'm using it for my academic work and also for the podcast. But it's so toxic. I can't tell you how it's too draining and so toxic, to be honest with you. And I feel sometimes I just completed 31 yesterday, and I feel like, okay, I feel like I'm different. And it's sometimes scary, but I have to maybe accept who I am. Maybe my energy drains faster, and it's tricky sometimes, to be honest. Just when you are different, you'll not have this energy and go and scroll social media. But I literally hate it, and I don't know how to find the sweet spot to not let people hate you because you don't follow or engaging. But I want to choose myself, and I find this makes some people hate you because you're not engaging with them on social media, you're not retweeting, you know what I mean? So I think that's something Yeah, I think the price for it that people exclude you and just start hating you because you're not engaging with them on social media. But yes, I totally agree. I hate it. That's the only way I can say it. I hate it. Thank you.
Well, I can definitely relate to what you're sharing as far as, overthinking. What if I don't respond? Does that mean that this person is going to interpret something that I didn't intend? And that cycle is so exhausting. And I've actually not spent any time on my personal Facebook all of 2021. I do have a Facebook page that would be an area that I would share different links. I didn't really engage with the page, but I felt that I needed to have some sort of representation there. And now I really just have anything that I post on Instagram goes to Facebook. And that's all I do with Facebook. And I was just going to suggest that if, in terms of deleting or not deleting, maybe just not be there, not engage with it. I don't necessarily think we have to delete the accounts. I feel I've wanted to go back and just delete everyone that I follow just to start over and just turn down that volume of all that noise. But then I get into that overthinking of, well, if I delete someone and then I don't add them back, they're going to get their feelings hurt. And I started that thought process with family. Like there's even family members that I wouldn't want to be their friend because they're pretty toxic when they share on Facebook. And so, where do you draw the line? Do you just completely eliminate it and delete it? Do you leave it there for friends and family? Do you delete everyone that you're following and start from scratch? I think these are things that it's funny that we're talking about this in this day and age, because this didn't exist 12 years ago whenever it came out. Maybe it's been 15, I don't know. But we didn't have to think about these problems. And so if we didn't have to think about these problems before, we definitely lived in a world without it. So those are all the thought processes I have around that.
I really resonate with that, Julie. And I think I told you this social media topic was very present for me. But I noticed that, because of my work, it just I naturally tended to start using Facebook to talk about my work, kind of like Marwa, or Marva, sorry, I don't know if I'm saying your name correctly. Like she was saying a few minutes ago about using social media for work. But I have noticed at the same time that I'm just not using it for myself. So it's almost like you were saying about the show reels, right? They're getting to see the good stuff and all of that, but I don't actually share a lot of what's going on in the background, and in the last 3 years I've really struggled with a number of things, quitting my corporate job and experiencing chronic fatigue and burnout and, some depression. And I've been in therapy for just over a year now, working with a Jungian analyst. And I don't get to share any of those things. And it's not because I'm afraid of it, but I think I've sort of created my own. Like I was saying earlier, you get to this point and you're like, oh, how did I end up using Facebook just in this way, where I just talk about my work and everything, but I don't actually feel that I have a space where, like I'm doing now, that even feels a bit vulnerable, to speak so openly about the things that I'm going through, because it just doesn't, it's not that I'm afraid to share it on Facebook, but it just doesn't feel like the right environment. So yeah, I'm realizing, it's almost like taking a step back and drawing a line under everything and going like, oh, how is this supporting me? Where did I start? Where did I want to get to? And where am I now? And is that actually where I want to be right now? So yeah, I resonate with this conversation.
Can I
I'm
add something?
Beatrice and I'm complete.
Go ahead,
Yes,
Marwa.
yes, I totally agree with Patricia. I'm sorry, Patricia. All right. Yes, I try to be vulnerable sometimes on Twitter, and I feel like I have to be authentic and just feel and tell what I feel. And what I found, to be honest, sometimes is I think it's a good advice I received. Don't tell people your psyche or maybe your vulnerability, because he can take it against you. Also, many people would resonate with you and feel this authenticity. But what I found is when you are maybe anonymous, for example, in Reddit, I found Reddit sometimes, not all the subreddit, but some of them, is quite, there's a comfort that no one know who I am and no one can judge me or take this any confession or sharing my vulnerability against me. So I find that this aspect of social media, if you are anonymous, and also having people share the same interest, because I don't like Facebook. I deleted it many years ago, but Twitter is very toxic because it just many people. And to be honest, I don't think sharing. Yeah, I sometimes I think when I'm sharing my work only, I feel just I'm very boring, to be honest, because this is not my life. I have struggles. I have bad days, and I agree with you. I agree with you, but I think it is not the right environment, and some people can simply take it against you. That's what I think.
And I agree with you. You know, it's just really taking stock and understanding as an HSP, we're going to be deeply impacted by the information we take in, the environments we are physically in. And I think energetically, we really get the toxicity of social media. Um, and it's a plague in my mind. It, you know, I don't want to demonize it. Obviously, if I didn't have social media, and I don't really consider Clubhouse social media. I feel like it's transcending out of social media, but it doesn't have the same energy as what I feel on social media. And like you said, Marwa, it's like you share from your heart or you share something that's vulnerable, and either no one responds, or you have that cousin who cuts you down or really takes advantage of you being in a vulnerable share, and it doesn't feel safe to share. And that's another reason why, you know, I feel limited in Instagram, even as a business owner, as someone who is deeply interested in sharing and talking about this trait and helping others understand it. And I mean, this is my mission and purpose on earth. I really believe to um, help others understand this, you know, regardless of coaching others on an individual basis. I have bigger dreams and hopes for taking this information out into the world. And I've seen and connected with other HSPs that have done this, who have made it their mission to spread kindness, or made it their mission to be an advocate for children who are going through chronic health issues, and show up, you know, as an advocate in the hospital, in the medical world. And so that's the bigger picture for me. And so if I feel bogged down by social media and that isn't feeling like a safe place to create and put this content out there, it's important for me to find a different way to do it. And I think a lot of HSPs are really finding social media at this stage of the game to not be a helpful place, or they're using it in a way that makes sense for their mission, but maybe behind the scenes they're grumbling about it, or they're not enjoying it, but they feel that this is the way they need to be relevant and visible and get their message out there. And I'm just saying out loud, there are definitely other ways to go about spreading awareness on what you do. So I'm just moving myself otherwhere. I definitely am not going to stop talking about this or spreading the word about this trait. And, you know, I definitely will be showing up here on a regular basis in Clubhouse. So that's just my personal mission.
Thank you, everyone. I think we'll have an endless talk about this social media things and how it affects SSP. I remember speaking once. Julie hosted a room once when we talked about social media many times, and I myself find Clubhouse enjoyable. And I talk about Clubhouse. I think I mentioned, I read somewhere and I mentioned it in the room that we talked a few months back. that Clubhouse feel more like a telephone party rather than like social media that we know. And myself also find Facebook draining my energy, as I mentioned, and also it feels many times like that. Yeah, when Maba mentioned that, oh my God, if I don't participate in Facebook arena, then people is going to reject me. They will hate me or that kind of things. And but that I find the to realize the self compassion is really helpful. Like asking myself, like, what do I need right now? Um, if I feel like, oh, I need to rest, then I will not turn my Facebook on. And or I ask myself, what do I need right now? And I feel like I need not to look at Facebook, then I will not look at Facebook. And at one point I just don't have Facebook on my phone anymore. And I think when Facebook arrived, not every of us has a smartphone. Facebook arrived when we were still on desktop or laptop, and that make it feel different. And later when we all the whole world has smartphone, and then Facebook manifests itself in our life differently. So in terms of my work, I sometimes will have to go into Facebook. Or what I'm doing right now is I just go to Facebook only when I'm on laptop. So I don't have Facebook on my phone, not Instagram on my phone. Then right now, I think I only have Clubhouse on my phone. So that's interesting. And I think this is how I went through the journey of social media. And yeah, I look forward to that we all will settle in the solution in terms of dealing with the world which has social media as part of it right now in a healthy way. Each person might have their own solution. But then I hope that we will find a peace in the world that have social media right now, and handle it in a healthy way. This is Awani, and I'm complete.
Hey everybody, hey Julie. So, uh, so yeah, about a year ago, I set up my business, a video production company, and I took a course to do that. And one of my mentors, one of the things they teach was to pump out content, like content marketing. So they would tell us to just keep pumping out content left and right, and it was probably the most stressful thing that I ever done in my entire life. I mean, I don't understand, but at the same time, I do see a lot of people who can do that. But I don't know. For me, that's not something that can just come naturally, I guess. I mean, I have put out a lot of content and I have gotten a lot of responses and all of that, but it's just stressful. And I think that it has a lot to do with, I mean, I had to even work out. I had to pump myself up before the shoot and everything. That's how stressful it is. And I think one of the reasons it's hard for me, and maybe I don't know about others, but probably maybe for me is that the fear of just judgment, I think, just like how people are looking at it and how they're seeing it. So yeah, so I just wanted to say that. That's all from my side.
Well, that's interesting that you bring up the judgment part, because I think it was Marwa that even mentioned, or maybe it was Savigny, that, I would even be, as bold to put something out that was meaningful for me. And then I would dread the notifications, or someone commented on my thing. And I thought, oh, well, now I have to go into repair mode. I have to articulate myself. And do I want to be kind? Do I want to be brash? It's such a it's just a mental game that feels exhausting. And so I think we all, have to go our own way, our own path, and decide what works best for us. But I think if you stop and notice your relationship with social media, or how you respond to social media, or how, if you notice how it makes you feel, and if those feelings aren't, in alignment with how you want to be feeling, I think it's safe to go your own way and pull away from social media and allow some space for something else. I posed this question in the social media room that we had on Tuesday. What would you be doing if you weren't building content for social media? What other activities would you be doing? Would you have more time to read? Would you have more time to just sit with your thoughts and process? Would you have more time to be in nature? Would you be able to go out into your community and do something to help and serve another group of people, or just to, spread your kindness that way? And if those, other areas of interest show up strongly, I think it's really important to listen to your intuition and see, what is that thing that motivates me. And if it's not social media, just to pull the plug and step away and see what else starts to take up your space and time. And so I just encourage that for anyone that's contemplating, what kind of effects social media is having on you. So, yeah, that's just, again, like Savigny said, we could go on and on about this topic.
Can I add something,
Yeah, go
Julie?
ahead.
That's really excellent point what you mentioned, and I have to be honest. Um, I think fear of judgment, that's one aspect. Let's face it. And I was trying to ask myself, to be honest, self-reflection. I take time off like 1 month in December from the podcast. I want to reflect what makes me afraid. And to be honest, when you have a content creation, you want people to like it. And I started to get in this mentality. Let's put it and just go and read the book you wanted to read all the time. And you are right. I think it's all about, I don't know how to explain it, but you said something very excellent. I think we attach ourselves. That's why way I see it, to how people view what we do, and it's ridiculous, to be honest. It's stupid, because I know sometimes people, especially in academia, they hate that I have the podcast. Not all of them, some of them, but I know sometimes it's just I don't know how to say that. I started to learn that it's okay. I'm not the center of the attention, or I'm not the center of the universe, and I will die eventually. And all that doesn't matter when I die. So why I should be afraid of the number of likes, or who retweeted, or they liked me or hated me? And I know that it was hard. And every time I bought episode, I'm afraid about the reaction. And sometimes people I don't know about just come and retweet and write good words, and even the good words, I try to not attach myself to this kind of, I don't know, the reward that people like or dislike it. I think it's damaging, and that's why I think social media, how it's designed, I think it's detrimental. So I think going to what actual before social media, reading book, volunteering, going to actual life, I think it's helped a lot, and I started to do that. It's hard, but yes, I'm trying to do that. That's excellent point, Julia.
Thank you. And I relate to everything that you shared. And just like you said, even the likes and the comments, it's like trying to remain balanced with, not letting those little serotonin kicks take over your actions and desires in connection with social media. I watch a lot of YouTube and I learn a lot from YouTube. And something that I've been seeing a lot recently in the last couple months is this conversation around a serotonin detox, and how social media has just basically rewritten our brain to need more of those little serotonin kicks, whether it's a like or a funny video, and it's just wasting time. It's not necessarily, it's like we're spending so much time looking for that next hit that we're spending more time scrolling, and we're going to that next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And that's again where, a lot of people will pull away from the screens, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and notice a big difference in how they feel, or notice when they want to reach for the phone. And what are they processing in that moment? Are you wanting to go to the phone to scroll the internet because you want to see how many people liked your post, and then that gives you an ego feeling or a sense of importance, or my words are relevant. I mean, do we need the social media to tell us how we feel about ourselves? And can you walk confidently in the work that you do and know whatever you put out there is from your unique perspective, and your perspective is needed and valued regardless of what people respond to, and we are not responsible for other people's responses. And so just staying in your lane, being confident about who you are and how you show up should be the only thing that matters. And so that is a journey that we can all choose to be on and work on. And I think, again, I don't think highly sensitive people are the only ones that feel this way, but I think we're in conversation because we're that much more in that energetic push pull of how it affects us, and we deeply process that information, we ponder it, and we think about it a lot. So I think those are why I'm seeing a lot of HSPs pull away from social media, because it's just not serving us. And I feel really enlightened or elevated to go back to my roots and really focus on what is meaningful for me, and not really use the temperature of social media to decide if what I have to share is of value or not. And so that's just a new journey for me, and my desire to pull away from social media. So that's what I wanted to share on that.
Yeah, I I completely agree. I think after this conversation, I'm probably going to pull back from all that mental torture that I've been giving myself when it comes to should I post more content or should I not? Should I should I reply to him or her this way? When somebody says something. And I think at the end of the day, I think all these tools are made so that as a business owner, it can help us reach more people in a in the most fastest way. But uh, I think as an HSP for me, I think it would be better if I rather just make one video that actually tells people, hey, this is what I do, and this is how you can reach me, and these are some of the results that I've gotten for these people, and just run it as an ad. And
Yes.
that then I don't have to worry about it. I'm done. Yeah.
Hmm. Um, I, um, I wanted to add what you were saying about what Facebook gives us. Um, and I realized in exploring this that there's something I've been exploring in therapy for the last few months, which is it's almost like a superiority complex, where and it's very subtle because it's masked, especially as highly sensitive people we're very used to being in service. So I personally almost use this being in service to demonstrate my superiority, and I was helping and advising or mentoring or supporting, guiding whatever other people, and I didn't realize, because I was in this automatic loop. It's almost unconscious. You're on Facebook and you're just scrolling. You're not thinking about what you're doing. I was using it to give myself this, validation of my superiority. And there's plenty of people who need, your kind of expertise or support. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because there's always going to be someone who needs help, and you're always going to be able to help someone, and that person's going to be super grateful and go like, oh my god, you're amazing, and the cycle continues, right? And you're just even more hooked to Facebook. But I think just realizing that this is what Facebook does for me has enabled me to turn the mirror back to me, because I really felt it was almost like literally a mirror, and I kept putting something into that mirror to fill something that's inside my inside my soul, like that validation. I think the more you do, inner work and self-development and therapy and all of that, you become much more aware and you're able to overcome patterns. But what I'm noticing is that those patterns don't disappear. They actually become a lot more subtle, that it's almost difficult to notice. It's like, but you're helping people. What do you mean you're superior, And then you're like, it just hits you one day and you realize, oh, okay, I've been, validating my ego, like you were saying, but I was feeling this rush of superiority, like, oh, I'm better than other people. And, and it feels shameful to be working with rejected parts of ourselves that might be feeling this way, because you don't want to think of yourself as better than. What do you mean I'm better? I'm not better than other people. I'm kind and I'm nice and I'm all these things. Yes, and I'm also all these other things. And seeing that part of myself has really enabled me to notice the subtle ways in which I was masking my superiority, by being superficially humble sometimes, or, trying to frame what I'm going to say in a really, kind or humble way, or whatever. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm going to pause now. This is Beatrice, and
Well, I think what you're explaining is, you take on this persona, you have this identity as your social media identity, and then you're constantly conflicted. We are humans, we're all going through different experiences at different times, and we can't be consistent. That's just not natural, to just show up one certain way so that we can be perceived by people to be that helper, that kind person. I have my angry moments. I say things that are brash or to the point or not in a nice way, but I feel forced to play this role. And again, it's funny because I kind of see social media as a stage, and there are a bunch of characters that are playing in a play, and some of those people are natural actors. That's their jam. They like to be in the spotlight. They like to perform through reels. That is something they enjoy. Whereas I call myself a total geek and nerd who would rather hang out in the library. I would rather put my nose in a book. I'd rather spend time in research. Kind of like Elaine Aron. She never meant to be a self-help guru. She never meant to put herself in that category. She was a researcher. She enjoyed the data. She enjoyed gathering the information. That's me. I love taking information and then turning it out into other information that can be shared with people. Maybe it's more bullet pointed or digested in a way that presents it in a new lens. But that's kind of the way I view social media. Is it will work for those who are good at stage performance, or that is their thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not judging that. There's all different types of personalities, but my personality is more geared towards hanging out in the library, and that's where you know, talking about this trait, having blog posts about this trait, having my website be the foundation of where I show up and the content that I build, because that is something I own. There is a domain that is attached to my website that I own. That's the only thing you can own on the internet. And as we go into this new realm of the metaverse, and I feel like we're at this pivotal point as HSPs to either go down that rabbit hole of more, taking us into that virtual reality, or do we pull back and say, we're the trailblazers, we're the pioneers that are going to pull people back into community and back into nature, and have that be our platform where we can build connection and also build maybe our self-esteem around the things that are important to us, and be in environments that don't feel threatening or judgmental or toxic for our nervous system. So it's it's just an interesting time to be alive. That's all. It's a really interesting time to be alive. And I think some HSPs might feel the push and need to go into this metaverse world. And there are some things about that that I think are interesting that could be helpful for people who are more introvert and they feel safer, at home on the online world. And maybe there'll be some pluses that I'm not aware of yet. But I think that we're at a pivotal point where there'll be a path that goes two different directions. Those who continue to go into that virtual world and those who start to pull back and say, hey, let's start having kindergarten outside. Let's start being more aware of the natural cycles and our, just our biology is designed for that. It's not designed for screens 24/7. So it's an exciting time, and I'm sure a lot of other people have similar feelings about that. And it's good to be aware of our options, but to just always reevaluate what is important to you and to ground yourself in what is important to yourself so that you can be a better person in the world to others, I think is another really important point. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here just for a second. I will need to close this room. I have gone 10 minutes over here, but we were just getting into this topic so deeply that it was hard to pull away. But I will give everyone just a minute here if you have something more to share, and then I'm going to go ahead and close this room. And if everyone feels complete, we will go ahead and close the room. And I just wanted to say thank you, everyone, for being here. I appreciate my time here on Clubhouse. I can't believe it's been a year. It's something that has really helped me get through this weird time that we're living through. And I am just so grateful that I've been able to build connections with HSPs even outside of this platform, which has been also another just beautiful way to connect with people I would never have access to, and to kind of come around this trait of being a highly sensitive person. So if you want to see more rooms about highly sensitive people, or just want to be in rooms where you can openly talk about deep issues like this, please follow the Highly Sensitive People Club. You can click on the little green house, follow the club, and check out the different rooms that we have scheduled. I will be scheduling more rooms for February, so always check back, or you can follow the room, and any event that you click the bell for will actually ping you into the room when the room opens. So that's another way to stay connected to these conversation spaces. So thanks again, everyone, for being here and celebrating on Clubhouse, being an HSP. I hope you continue to dip in and build community here, and take the time to reach out to a fellow HSP if you're feeling called to. You never know where that relationship can take you. And I'm all about using this platform as a way to get our different ideas and pursuits and missions out in the world as HSPs, because I think we're here to change the world. We just need to band together and lean on each other and move through the world with confidence, knowing that this trait is a superpower. So thanks again, everyone, for being here, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, Julia. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have
Thank
a
you.
good day.